The El Paso Juarez area is currently in the middle of a drug war. Drug cartels in Mexico are fighting for control of the major crossing point that is Juarez, Chihuahua. If the current war on drugs is not working, then what could be done to solve this problem? A possible solution was presented: the legalization of narcotics. It is thought of as a potential solution to legalize drugs to prevent the continuation of mass murders and drug wars in Ciudad Juarez, Chihuahua. There are many questions brought up when it comes to this proposed solution. What effects would the legalization of drugs have on the region, and how would the drugs be regulated? Would that really be the right solution, or do we need to find a more reasonable potential solution? In 2008, there were over 1,400 drug-related murders in Juarez. The murders average out to more than 4 every single day of last year. Drug cartels are fighting not only each other, but the Mexican police, the Mexican army, and Mexico's law-abiding citizens. The billion-dollar industry has seized power of an entire city, from policemen to politicians. Regulating the amounts a person can obtain and the potency of drugs can help with negative health effects. If legalizing drugs doesn't curb the violence and the myriad of other issues that stem from drug violence, then what will work?
I think this is a really important issue, and it's also one that lends itself to, to humor and jokes, and when other people have brought issues like this forward for public policy consideration, I think they're dismissed as whack jobs, and that may be the case in this instance, but I think we took a lot of care in the language that we used to say that we're urging that the U.S. government begin an open and honest dialogue about the prohibition of narcotics in the United States. And so we weren't advocating legalizing drugs, but we're saying this 40-year-old drug war, which is costing us billions of dollars and costs all of our partners in the war, Colombia, Peru, Mexico, billions of dollars. We have hundreds of thousands of our U.S. citizens in jails on drug offenses. I think we have more citizens in jail per capita, maybe more citizens in jail total than any other country in the world. We are seeing the wholesale slaughter of certainly drug operatives in Juarez, but innocents also this past year. And so by any measure that I can look at, the drug war has been a complete failure.
Has been an utter failure, and I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana laws. But I'm not somebody who believes in legalization of marijuana. What I do believe is that we need to rethink how we are operating in the drug wars, and I think that currently we are not doing a good job.
Argument. First of all, I mean, the cost of prohibition in terms of both law enforcement expenses and lost tax revenue is estimated somewhere between $10 and $40 billion. That's not pocket change. But, you know, there's another side to the economic argument, too. Our current laws are funding these horrific Mexican drug gangs that have started a real war on our southern border. 60% of their income, according to Mexican officials, comes from marijuana. If we treated marijuana like we treat our wine industry here in California, brought it out of the shadows, regulated and taxed it, we could cut off 60% of the income to these horrific gangs.
Hey.
En veces yo me siento que, pues no, en veces yo le digo a mis hijas, yo ya quiero irme también, le digo, porque yo siempre me ha sido muy duro esto. Esta defunción dice que murió por estrangulamiento, o sea que no murió todavía con las heridas, las 10 cuchilladas que le dieron en el estómago, y luego le metieron un calcetín en la boca, de su mismo calcetín. No se resuelve nada, y pensar, a diario yo veo las noticias y pensar que a diario pasa pasa a otras gentes lo que uno pasó, porque es muy feo.
One alternative is to prioritize resources. It tackles the drug problem by using baby steps. It funnels resources to solve the more dangerous and deep-rooted problems. More money should be spent to combat tougher drugs like heroin and cocaine rather than being spent on soft drugs like marijuana. Chronic users, as opposed to occasional users, would face harsher punishment.
I took pains during the meeting to say, I don't know that that's the right answer. I don't know. I mean, a lot of other questions come up. How would you regulate it? How would you ensure that the distribution system came from legitimate sources and wasn't further enriching these drug lords? How do you ensure that you don't have a spike in usage for people under the age of 18, etc.?
Those in favor of legalizing drugs believe that it will end many of the issues associated with the drug trade. The theory is that if drugs are legal and regulated, then many problems will go away. Regulating the amount a person can obtain and the potency of drugs can help the negative health effects. It's a way of solving the problem from the top down instead of the bottom up. There are programs that talk about the effects of consuming drugs. It is so easy for kids to get a hold of them. If we support programs such as DARE, then we can reach out to many kids. If we can get them to actually say no, then the usage of drugs would go down significantly. Another alternative is referred to as harm reduction. This focuses on educating the drug-using community to reduce harm in all its forms. A possible approach to this could be as simple as forming a strong, well-trained, and well-paid police department in Juarez. It is necessary for the police to have the upper hand in order for them to be able to control those who break the laws.
I think that the issue at least deserves an honest airing and an intelligent debate. And at the end of it, the experts might conclude, prohibition continues to make sense, but we can focus much more on treatment or some form of regulation, like the experiment that's going on in California and a dozen or half a dozen other states, or maybe certain narcotics are legalized and regulated. But once you regulate and you're then able to work with users not as criminals, but people who have a health problem. It can be addressed as a public health issue.
A solution is needed now, as things may only get worse. The actions taken right now are not working out or getting any positive outcomes. It is imperative that new tactics are put into action to try and solve these mass murders and drug wars. Standing by and doing the same thing as before isn't going to get us anywhere.
What we did today was to say that the drug war isn't working. The most visible evidence and most immediate evidence is Ciudad Juarez, and we can't sit idly by while this is happening. So we're asking for a change, and all options need to be on the table, including the ending of prohibition of narcotics.